last 12 years, 12 months, it's been challenging, and it's been challenging for parents and adults, but particularly for children and youth, and individuals who have perhaps had more time at home, but at the same time, they've also had less time with their peers and missing out on rites of passage and missing out on sporting events and school events and all of the different things that children typically engage in. And so we know that children's mental health is always important, and in particular over the last year is essential. Children and families learn their cues about how to handle their mental health from adults very often, right? And so, so as adults on the call, we have a unique opportunity to equip ourselves with information and knowledge that can help address children's mental health issues while also modeling the importance and the destigmatizing focus of how to take care of our mental health and take care of each other. So we're going to be focusing on that topic today, and we have a host of individuals that will be joining us today. So we'll hear briefly from Resilience High Point, the Guilford County System of Care Community Collaborative, and the Resilient Guilford Network. And then we'll hear for about 15 minutes from Jaron Doby, who is, his full bio will be coming soon, but who will be inspiring, I'm sure, to kind of motivate us to think about mental health and flipping the script about how we think about mental health. And then we have a panel of speakers that will be joining us. And so we're going to ask each of our panel speakers to address a couple questions. So each panelist will give their responses to the questions, and then we'll open up a facilitated Q&A session led by Valerie Jones and Lisa Taylor to just really guide some conversation and discussion so that for how we can collectively address mental health in our community. And then we'll wrap up with a call to action, kind of taking conversation and moving that to what can we do after the call and beyond to support children's mental health. So again, this is a Children's Mental Health Awareness Month, and in particular, this week is a special month, a special week, and we'll hear more about that later, but just wanted to mention that this session is part of a national initiative as well. Throughout the month of May, our local government has been working on proclamations. Last night, the Greensboro City Council passed a proclamation making May Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know those are in process and under review in both High Point and Guilford County as well. So just wanted to let you know that our local government organizations are also on board and recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month as well. So I'm going to pass the baton to a friend and colleague, Councilman Cyril Jefferson, who will give you an overview of what Resilience High Point is as one of the partners for this, this month's event.
Absolutely. Dr. Graves, thank you so much for that great introduction, and thank you for the incredible work that you and the rest of the team at the Kellin Foundation do to host these events monthly. I'm thrilled to be here with every single person on this call, every single individual who is a champion for this kind of work, every proponent and advocate who's standing up to say that they care a lot about these issues. As Dr. Graves mentioned, I'm a member of High Point City Council, and on Monday night, we proudly did do our proclamation in regards to Children's Mental Health Awareness Month. And as a city, there's fewer issues that I think should be more prevalent than what we do for our youth who end up being our leaders and our residents of tomorrow. I'm also principal consultant on Change Often, and in that capacity, we work with communities and with client organizations who are building capacity, who are doing the unique and innovative things that can make community a whole lot better. And so one of our partners in doing that work is Resilience High Point. And Resilience High Point was founded in 2019 as a backbone organization. It seeks to understand and promote resources, information, access, and knowledge to build and sustain a thriving community. They also seek to identify and fill gaps that are barriers by building common experiences through effective collaboration and a number of mechanisms that bring folks together. Most recently, we held probably, I think this might have been our 8th or 9th community convening. We've held them both in person and virtually recently with regards to the pandemic. Typically in those spaces, we're bringing together the practitioners, the local elected officials, members from our faith community, educators, folks from higher education as well, neighborhood leaders, parents, their families. We want to bring sort of this amalgamation of voices and people who make up the fabric of our city's DNA, bringing them together so that they can have the kinds of conversations about big issues. Most recently, the event that was held last Friday was one in which we are looking at how do we address social innovation in an upstream way. Many of you have probably heard that term before, but ultimately what it's looking at is if there are issues that we're responding to right now, how might we better address those issues by going more upstream and looking at things at the root of the problem. And in doing so, it requires collaboration, it requires us to work together, and it requires us to be really intentional. And so we're very proud of everyone who was a part of that conversation. We were just sort of getting the wheels turning on things in a couple of hours that we were there, and we're looking forward to steps that will come from that. In addition to that, there's also the community resiliency model trainings that Resilience High Point does. Resilience High Point also does the Compassion Project and initiatives, and we'll see more about that. That'll come out here soon. In addition to that, working with organizations such as Kellin Foundation and all the other partners who are here today to host events such as what we have. So we thank you, and we look forward to chatting with you and learning more as we go throughout the event. Take care.
All right, thank you so much for that overview. And it's really important and essential for us to make the biggest collective impact to partner as organizations, particularly, although we might have somewhat unique missions, there's definitely some connections and overlap and alignment that we can make. And so as another example of that, Guilford County has our System of Care Collaborative, which is focused on children's mental health. And so we have two representatives, Dr. Van Catterall, who is the System of Care Chairperson, and Valerie Jones, the System of Care Coordinator, to tell you a little bit about this collaborative work as well.
I'll go ahead and go first. I am Van Catterall. I'm Chief Clinical Officer at Alexander Youth Network. And as Kelly said, I am also have the opportunity to chair the Guilford County System of Care Collaborative. The Guilford County System of Care Collaborative is sponsored by Sandhills Center, and it's a group of county and private provider agencies who meet monthly with a focus on improving the coordination of mental health and related services to children and families here in Guilford County, and fostering an atmosphere where youth and their families work in partnership with those providers to build supports based on the individual strengths and needs of the child and their family. Some of our recent collaborative projects have involved bringing trauma-informed educational presentations and resources to at-risk communities to raise awareness of the impact of trauma on children. And also we co-sponsored a resource event for the homeless community. A current focus for our collaborative is adding more community and youth voices to our group. So we really invite anyone interested in joining our efforts to reach out to the Guilford County System of Care Collaborative for more information. We'd love to have you join us as we continue to serve our communities and help children and families with the challenges they face here in Guilford County.
Hey everybody, my name is Valerie Jones, and if any of you knew Lisa Salo, she was the System of Care Coordinator at Sandhills for many years, and she retired, and so I have taken on that position. And I just want to invite everybody to join the collaborative. I have put my email in the chat box, and we meet on the second Tuesday of each month from 12:45 to 2, and that is a virtual meeting. And we have some really interesting agency spotlights and different speakers, presentations. It's a good way to get information on provider updates and updates in our system. And as well, we talk a little bit about some of the mental health reform that is taking place right now. So I just invite you to join.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And the contact information to join both of those initiatives are in the chat box. So feel free to check out the chat box as well. I wanted to mention to you a little bit about the Resilient Guilford Network and the Trauma Provider Network and what those are here as the three kind of co-sponsoring collaboratives for the event today. So back in 2010, we started the Trauma Provider Network, which was really focused on service level coordination for how do we coordinate and address the needs of children and families impacted by violence and trauma. And so we really looked at how to create service connections? How do we streamline referrals? How do we help individuals who need access to different services get access to those services? So our Trauma Provider Network has been made up of about 30 organizations since 2010 that meets monthly, that really focuses on that service level coordination. What we heard from the community as well as from our trauma providers is that we need that service coordination, but we also need system level coordination. We need an ability to coordinate collaboratives similar to this event today that helps us to align across collaborative bodies of work around the area of resilience. And so we launched the Resilient Guilford Network, which launched in January of this year, with the goal of really being an action-oriented network of systems and collaborative leaders that build and support safe, secure, and nurturing communities. And so some of those action steps within the Resilient Guilford Network include building awareness of ACEs and trauma and how do we build resilience, increasing coordination and collaboration among collaborative groups to really align those efforts for maximum collective impact. Deliver pre-service and in-service trainings that could be applicable and helpful to the entire community and not just one collaborative group, but casting a wider net there, and helping to support policy changes and practices that are trauma responsive and healing centered. And so in those actions, it's a little bit different. So the Trauma Provider Network has become kind of a subcommittee of the Resilient Guilford Network, to where they are working bodies, but their focuses are a little bit different. Their foci, I guess they would say, are a little bit different. And so that's the difference between these networks. We invite you to join each of those initiatives. A message was just put in the chat box to be able to link into those. And these efforts are also part of the PACES Connection work. If anybody's familiar with ACEs Connection, a national website that provides a lot of information about resilience and ACEs. They recently changed their name to the PACES Connection. And so we're connected into that network as well. So with that, without further ado, that's kind of some of the collaborative happenings that are happening across Guilford County and the way that we overlap and work together to connect those. And so let's dive into the topic at hand, in particular, children's mental health. And I cannot be more excited to introduce Jaron Doby, who I've known for quite a long time in a variety of different roles, when he was first a student and just watching his career grow. So Jaron is a licensed clinical social worker. He's currently practicing as an outpatient mental health therapist and a native of Greensboro. He attended UNCG and A&T, and he earned both his graduate and undergraduate degrees. He is a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and continues to serve his community both locally and abroad. Jaron is the founder of the Brandon Dwight Blue Memorial Scholarship, where he provides aid to college-bound high school seniors at his alma mater, which is James Dudley High School. Jaron is also the co-founder of Transcend Resource Solutions, and which is an organization that's really driven to spread awareness around mental health and educational disparities in the community. He's a passionate public speaker, a great public speaker, as you'll see, and he also serves as a mental health correspondent for various news and media outlets across North Carolina. So without further ado, Jaron, take it away.
Ooh, Kelly, like no pressure at all. You make me sound good, right? I definitely do appreciate it. Greetings and salutations, everybody. We are finally in the afternoon on, depending on what part of the world you're in, a beautiful Wednesday. Happy National Children's Mental Health Awareness Week to everyone. Happy National Mental Health Awareness Month to everyone as well. I just want to thank Kelly Graves, also the Kellin Foundation. Want to make sure that we also acknowledge, of course, Resilient Guilford Network, Guilford Trauma Provider Network, Resilience High Point, Guilford County System of Care, of course, Councilman Jefferson, Pastor Johnson as well. Want to take an opportunity to acknowledge him and everyone. I mean, speakers, friends, literally community partners, everyone that is here to be able to be here for today. Greatly appreciate you all being able to be here. Of course, right? I'm very happy to be here to be able to speak on such a wonderful topic about all of this. But a lot of it has led me here in relation to my background as well. Just a little bit about my life. I am the youngest of 4 boys, and my brothers never let me forget that I am the youngest brother of them all, to be quite honest with you. I am actively here with you all this week in genuine excitement as I will be able to marry the wonderful woman of my dreams on Friday, May 7th at 5 p.m. And I will be there with bells on. You better believe it. Both of my parents, actually, literally my mother from Virginia, actually is a Bennett Bell. My father attended North Carolina A&T State University. They were very, very happy that I went to UNCG. And when I say happy, I mean partially happy, but they were glad that I was able to attend A&T on the back end of things. Being able to come up under their wings was something that I never, ever took for granted. My mother was greatly influenced by my grandfather, his name, the great Garnell Stamps, who is a very, very passionate and well-known civil rights leader in the state of Virginia. I distinctly remember something that gave me a lot of hope growing up as a child that greatly affected my mental health. When we would go and visit my grandfather, my mother would always say, make sure you keep your voice down. He's having a meeting. It was this one particular meeting as a very young child that I happened just to burst into the doors and, happy to see my grandfather, happy to see him because I recently went to go and visit him. He was sitting with a woman and I ran around the two of them and she didn't seem to mind too much as a very young child running around, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I later found out that woman that he was meeting with was the late, great Rosa Parks, who was able to compliment me, right, on my energy, right, my ability to not be able to be afraid in those moments, which, to be quite honest with you, as a very young child was something that I really shied away from. For taking opportunity to thank my mother once again for always instilling in me to not run away from my greatness, which she knew that I had a voice that I desired to use, but was very much so afraid in order to do that. So I took those efforts, right, and collaboratively, changed them into a music career where I got to travel around and be able to speak to many children in large organizations all across the country. It was something that I would never forget. It was one of the greatest moments of my life, but it was also a moment at that particular time when it comes to the mental health of a young child like myself, where I experienced something that would affect me for the remainder of my life. Took the opportunity at one point in time and was granted, I guess at that time, what you would consider residency at Epcot Center, the greatest place to be able to visit on earth as a child. Disney World, of course, right? It was something that was very great for me, but it was also the first time that I had ever experienced racism as a young Black man in America. It was something that stuck with me, to be honest with you. Something that caused me to be able to question, right, what the world had against a young Black child in America. What was wrong with the color of my skin? And why would someone call me the things that I was called at that particular time? It was something that then in turn took an opportunity to push me very much so further to make sure that I knew the way that I felt and I knew the way that it affected me. But I wanted to make sure that I spread the message as much and as far and as broad as I could to any young child that looked like me and any young child that never would look like me a day in their lives, that they don't have to be ashamed of who it is that they are. They don't have to be ashamed of what it is that they represent, and that words are just that, words. It was something that led me, honestly, to being able to become more interested in pursuing things, which, how Kelly mentioned, led me over to UNCG. I entered there as a music student, left as a psychology graduate. To be honest with you all, once again, I just really got tired of playing Bach and Beethoven at the end of the day. But ultimately, I knew that I had a passion for something else. And that was helping other people, ultimately. In the summer before I entered into my mental health career, a new graduate, I had no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to turn. A lot of you may be very familiar with a community activist, speaker, children's savior. I mean, just a great help to the mental health field. A good friend of mine by the name of Sonia Desai took a very, very young man, fresh out of college. She was working at Family Services of Piedmont at the time and said, "Hey, we have some openings. It may not be what you're looking for, but come on over our way. We'll be able to help you." My first mental health job, ladies and gentlemen, I took as a receptionist at the front desk of a mental health company. It was a very, very humble beginnings, opening the doors, pouring coffee, answering phones, greeting folks as they came in. But I knew one thing. I knew that I had a desire to be able to continue to help those children, continue to help those people who were seeking help. So I did that and took an opportunity to be able to grow that into a career, that flourished right before my eyes. It is something that I will never, ever forget. And I will always be appreciative of the people that I was able to be able to encounter. And I also got my first exposure to the one thing that everybody looks forward to the most in mental health, right? The paperwork, writing notes. It was the best thing ever, right? Still is the best thing ever. And I hope you all can hear the joy in my voice in relation to that. But I'll never forget at that particular time, a young woman that I met as a receptionist and within the mental health field. She took the opportunity, a very young child, to display and share with me a lot of her life. And not even knowing, the position that I was in, not being a therapist yet, I was a therapist to someone. They shared the hardships that it was that they were able to experience at the hands of various family members within the home. That was something that I took an opportunity to listen to, because so many different people that she took the opportunity to meet from what it was that she told me did not listen at all. But here I was, this receptionist, being the one voice in the clouds and the darkness of a particular life that honestly, at that particular time, was something that brought her very much joy. I was the one voice that took the opportunity to stand back initially and listen before it is that I spoke, when everyone wanted to tell her what it was that she needed, what it was that she should be, how it is that she should think, and most importantly, how it is that she should feel. It was something that I will never, ever forget. And her face is something that I continue to see in the faces of all the people that I take an opportunity to help. Because child mental health, ladies and gentlemen, is something that is very real. Real to that young woman that continues to leave her home and run away, hoping to do what it is that she can in order to advance her family and advance her life by any means, because the lights aren't on, or because that night, they had to eat the same meal once again, or be able to sit in the cold. Running away and being able to be considered a problem child in order to do what it is that she can to advance. But no one knew simultaneously she was dodging other advances at home. This is something that we have to take an opportunity to be able to lean back and be able to absorb and accept, instead of looking at children as good or bad and being able to honestly, judge them, which does happen within our field every day. That we take an opportunity to honestly be able to peel back the layers of what it is that they are experiencing, instead of shipping them off to the nearest group home or inpatient facility, hoping that it is something that will be able to fix them. And there's that word, to fix. We have to make sure, right, that our approaches are something that are genuine, and that they are more than just a name and a Medicaid number on the top of a PCP. More than just a name and a background that it is that you read when it comes to the background of a particular patient and their symptoms, because they're more than those symptoms. They are young children. And we all know that children that deal with unaddressed mental health issues become adults that deal with unaddressed mental health issues. It's important that everyone here has a stake and a hand in that, in order to make sure that they definitely take an opportunity to be able to stop that and do everything they can, because everyone here is important in that particular process. It is important in the process of a young man that won't even speak to his parents about what it is that he's going through, because he's never gotten that opportunity in that environment, and that stage was never set to be able to take the opportunity to share his feelings, so he kept them inside. Labeled a mute or labeled emotionally insensitive because he does not know how to actively communicate, because that is what his environment taught him. For that frustrated therapist that continues to have sessions with him, attempting to be able to talk with him when his communication style is not even that. Not even taking an opportunity to ask or explore any further as to what is best for this child to be able to express themselves, but discharges them just as quickly to someone else because they're not as active as their other clients. It's important to be able to understand that all children deal with mental health differently, and they are exposed to things that we have more so than we ever have. Children are taking the opportunity to have cell phones, tablets, right? That for some parents, and if you all are parents like myself, at points they were saving graces. Yes, they're quiet in the car. But it is also a tool to be able to honestly take an opportunity to be exposed to way more. To that young woman who considered herself to be as beautiful as anyone in the entire world because her parents and her family members and friends told her so. But in the comments of her TikTok account or the comments on a particular YouTube channel that she started, someone has something to say about how it is that she looked. Someone has something to say about how it is that she spoke, about how it is that she conducted herself. That hurt her confidence. It was something that she didn't mention to her parents or, even took an opportunity to mention to any other family members because it was something that became normal. So those hurtful comments was something that were normalized with her, something that she took an opportunity to be able to internalize in a lot of different ways and began questioning every single solitary thing that it is that she did. It's important that we pay attention to our children, important that we pay attention to all children, because they are taking an opportunity to have these experiences that we, as older adults, as the older generation, have failed to be able to experience ourselves. Things are different. Everything is definitely different. But overall, it is something that we have to take an opportunity to be able to actively address, and everybody is important to that process. Not just the therapists, not just the directors, not just the owners, but everyone is important to this process. Those intake folks that take an opportunity to write down a person's information when it is that they call, because all they've wanted was help. And you're the first person that they talked to that was nice to them. Be very much so patient with yourself and be careful with how it is that you approach them, even when you have a bad day, because that's the one time that they may be able to call to look for help. And you're the first voice that they hear. And hopefully that voice is one that is welcoming instead of one that is off-putting because it's 4:59 and they clock out at 5. And it was a call that should have never made it through. But it's a call that should have always made it through, because that's exactly what it is that they are trying to do every day. Just make it through. Definitely. To those coders and billers that take an opportunity to make sure that all the services that we are to provide are something that actually goes off without a hitch, not disrupting service because of a minor hiccup in the life of a child that needed therapy more than anything else, more than a friend at that particular time. Very important to be able to acknowledge our janitors and folks that clean our facilities for these young children and families to be able to come to recognize that when they come inside and see a clean carpet or a clean chair to be able to sit on, it's something that they do not have at home. That's different every single solitary day. And they're just thankful that things look clean, smell clean, are clean, and that there are friendly faces sitting there waiting to be able to help them. It all makes sense. To your internet provider that came in and hooked up that internet within your office that allowed for that same child to be offered something to be able to watch within that office because the TV doesn't work at home. And they're ashamed every day when they go to school with other friends and talking about shows and they're unable to be able to engage in that conversation. It's something that can hurt their pride, something that can hurt their spirit, something that can damage their emotions that people never think about. I'm asking you to think about it now. I'm asking you to take an opportunity to think about it every day. But I'm also asking you to be able to normalize a couple of things. Normalize the way that it is that we take an opportunity to consider, right, stereotypes as not being stereotypes anymore. Normalize being able to tell a young woman that she is pretty, but she can also be whatever it is that she would like to be in the world. And that does not have to involve her appearance in any way. Normalize, I'm asking you all to be able to have young men be okay with being able to express what it is that they feel and feel vulnerable when all the world ever tells them to do is toughen up, be quiet, suck it up, and wonder why when they become adults, they're unable to express their emotions with other adults or in relationships. It starts right here. It starts right now. It starts when they were younger. It started when they took that opportunity to be able to bring their problems to you or your coworker or someone that you knew. And at that particular time, they were able to re-engage that same stereotype that reinforced how it is that they felt. Normalize the experience of young children every day. Like my 9-year-old daughter, who I love very, very much, who this last summer, lived the world loving and knowing everyone, not seeing color, not being able to prejudge anyone, but at a summer camp experienced her first experience with racism. It was something that actively affected her mental health as well. She came to me every day. Daddy, do I have to go back? Daddy, what if I just lightened my skin? Daddy, is this something that is going to happen to me again? These are experiences that are very real every day, regardless of skin color, age, creed, background, location. These are experiences that happen every single solitary day. But it is our job to be able to make sure that we are able to address those things very much so forward to that same child of mine that has learned through the happenings of the world and conversations with her father about the treatment of what things look like for people her skin color and those that are not, people that are Asian, Latino, white, Black, having various experiences, stereotypes, and judgments. So every day that I leave our home and she is here, she takes the opportunity to hug me, tells me that she hopes that I return because she's very much so aware as a young Black woman that daddy may come into an experience or come into an encounter with possible a police officer that is not very nice. These are conversations that we have with our children. These are the feelings that it is that we explore. But everyone has a duty. Today, I'm challenging you today to be able to make sure that you are taking an opportunity to be able to acknowledge those things. So today we're flipping the script. I'm asking for you to flip the script on child mental health today. Don't ignore that child that chooses to tell you their story. Don't ignore that child that's sitting in the corner, afraid to speak. Be able to take an opportunity to be more patient. I want you to flip the script on compassion fatigue. When you're just so tired to be able to help another child, to be able to help anyone else, when all it is that they need is your help alone at that particular time. Being able to recognize that when you're not okay, that it is hard to make sure that someone else is okay. That self-care remains to be important. And that is something that we should encourage in all children. Be able to flip the script on how it is that we view children's mental health nationally and locally. We've been able to talk about reform as well, being able to flip the script on mental health reform, and being able to normalize the experience of young children everywhere in the entire world, knowing that they are looking for just that one friendly face. Will it be yours? I really hope so. This is something that I've remained to be very, very passionate about. I cannot thank you all enough for being here today, for every last single solitary thing that you all have done in the field of mental health, because I have seen so many familiar faces in this chat. And I hope to see your faces again on so many different levels and being able to once again help that child, talk to that child, be that smiling face, be that bright spirit in their lives. Once again, I want to take an opportunity to thank Dr. Kelly Graves, who you all heard earlier today, met a very young, starving graduate student who just wanted to help children, hadn't done anything yet. But she knew at that particular time that I had one thing, passion, and that was enough. And that led me here to you all today, over 10 years later. Our experiences are things that shape us and continue to shape the children here on a national level. All of you, every single solitary one of you, continue to be in my thoughts, wishes, and in my prayers. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. And thank you again, Dr. Graves.
Jaron, that was amazing, inspiring, so on point in so many ways. And thank you so much for sharing your time, talents, and passion with us. You can feel it when you talk. I have no doubt you'll continue to move mountains and change worlds and change the lives of children and all of the things that you've been doing and more in the future. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to invite you now, Councilman Jefferson, to join. Councilman Jefferson will be leading our panel discussion. And so we're going to be having some panelists talk about these 3 questions, because all of us have different perspectives in the world, and it's helpful to look at how we see children's mental health from different perspectives. So Councilman Jefferson, take it away.
Dr. Graves, thank you so much for that. And Jaren, thank you. Your words not only were very passionate, I think very timely and spot on to what we need to hear today. So thank you again. I'm excited for the individuals who are here with us today, who will give insight in responses to the 3 questions that are provided. I have the privilege of introducing them and asking that each panelist give us no more than 5 minutes of a response on these 3 questions. And once we've heard from each panelist at the end, you'll get a chance to do a Q&A in which you'll be able to hear them respond to some of the questions that you all may have from Zoom attendees. Our first panelist who we will hear from is Mr. Jace Jeffries. He's currently a student at North Carolina A&T State University. As a 21-year-old, he identifies as a person with lived experience. Jace, would you kindly, from your perspective, let us know, how do you view children's mental health in our community? Also, feel free to let us know what might be happening and what else needs to happen to support children's mental health. Again, in your opinion, are there any resources, information, et cetera, that you would want to add or share that may be useful to today's listeners? Jace?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is doing very good today. From my perspective, I see it as like, I think a lot more people should be like educated on it more. Cause like a lot of people doesn't really like they understand, but they don't understand. Like you hear all the time, like, oh, you gotta be patient with this one youth because he has this, or some people see it as like, how can I word this right? See it as like a way to judge in a way, like they don't fully understand, if that makes sense. Yeah, like I think more people should just be like, just educate on it more, because like people see it as in different views. Like some people see it as a negative, but like if you see it as a negative, how can you really help somebody? Like help them like feel comfortable with whatever they're going through, or like you never know what a person goes through outside of an event or outside of school, outside of just anything in general. So just being more understanding is what I think. That's how I view, just have more people being understanding. I'm supposed to answer all of these like back to back to back.
That's powerful what you said about sort of the negative stereotypes I think come with this, and asking folks to be more understanding, to empathize with folks who go through things. I think that's really, really good. And so if that's what you would hope should happen and what you feel like we need more of in our community, would you say that there are perhaps some resources out there that maybe our community doesn't have that we should have? Or even if it's not a specific resource, maybe it's how we gather the information perhaps that can help us maybe to be more of that understanding community, so that way we no longer vilify or demonize people for the mental health issues that we all experience.
I would say really like the word is already out there, like constantly throughout everyday life. But I think just keep pushing it to where like once like people see it over and over again, like learning more about it, they'll like understand it. Like, okay, this is not a bad thing. This is like, I can't, just because I don't have it or, I don't understand it, doesn't mean I could just judge a person just off of, what I'm saying, the cover. You can't judge a person by his cover without even flipping the pages to really get to know the person. I mean, some events like, I'm trying to figure out an event to where like a lot of youth could it'll like open their minds to like come out and even bring like more friends or even their parents or grandparents or so forth, just to like come out and just like learn more about it, get more educated on it, and just like, some people probably have mental health issues and don't know, you know, you just never know. So that's how I feel. Just trying to find like an event, more events or more consistent events to where you can get like more people in like engaged in it.
Yeah. Jace, I don't know if you see what's in the chat, but people are going crazy over everything you said, man. I'm going to highlight what you said about flipping the pages, because I believe in Dr. Graves, you and your team, one thing you all have been talking about is flipping the script sort of on children's mental health. And so, Jace, for you to jump out there and say flip the pages, man, there's a lot of alignment here. Folks really liked your perspective about combating the negative stereotypes. We need to hear about the impact of negative attitudes. And also folks recognize your perspective being a college student. You've got such a great perspective on this. And so young people absolutely need those spaces to open up, man. I love what you shared, man. You right now, I think you're a rock star in the chat. And Jace, I hope you'll hang around a little while longer. After we've had a chance to introduce all the rest of our panelists, there's going to be more Q&As, and we'd love for you to be there for folks who have questions perhaps for you. Is that okay?
That's fine. I'll be here.
Thank you so much, Jace. All right, that was awesome. Our next panelist is Dr. Susan Stimples-Harmon. She's earned 2 BS degrees from Guilford College and a master's in education and school counseling and a PhD in counseling from UNC Greensboro. Her career consists of 8 years teaching elementary school, 6 years as a school counselor, and 13 years as an educational researcher. Since Susan retired from her job as an educational researcher at UNCG, she has been taking weekly watercolor and pottery classes. Her community activities include membership on 4 boards of directors, an elder at her church, an adult literacy tutor for Reading Connections, weekly volunteering at Presbyterian Counseling Center and Fellowship Presbyterian Church, and a guardian ad litem for the Guilford County Court System. She is married to the love of her life, Patrick, and they have 3 wonderful daughters, 2 terrific son-in-laws, and 2 adorable granddaughters. Susan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Sarah, let's see everybody in the tiny little boxes. You know.
Yeah. Susan, it's always a pleasure to see you. And I probably want to highlight Susan's also a board member for Resilient Guilford. And so we appreciate all the work you do in every capacity that you serve our community, and really appreciate you being here. Susan, we'll start with the first, and that's just simply from your perspective. Sure. How do you view children's mental health in our community?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this a lot. You'll ask my husband, he'll say, yep, she's been reading a lot lately and trying to figure out the best way to sort of talk about difficult issues, I think. You know, children's mental health is impacted by so many factors. You know, what's going on with their parents, what's going on in school, what's going on in the family. And you throw in a pandemic, a parent maybe losing a job or having a reduction in hours, maybe a possible eviction, lack of internet access, not being with their friends. The list goes on. And you might hear that saying, well, at least we're all in this together. And what I say is, well, sort of. The disparities, of course, affect those in lower income zip codes. People who were doing okay before the pandemic may still be doing okay, but they may have gone from surviving to struggling, or maybe not even surviving at all. And of course, children are, you know, in the midst of all of this that's going on. You know, children who at least had the structure of the school day have been thrust into wondering, you know, are they going to pass? How are they going to learn all the stuff their teacher wants them to know? They might have a lack of technology. We all know that these things exist. Parents, teachers, everybody's struggling. So I guess what I thought about as a, you know, former counselor and somebody who enjoys reading research, I found out, I was thinking more about, you know, when is the time that it's time to seek professional help? So I looked to the CDC, and they've become an excellent resource for finding out for help in our communities. And they've published a list of things that parents should look for. So I'm sort of focusing on the parents in this situation. And for parents to, and I've got a document, and I guess Dr. Graves, if you're gonna be like putting those up and stuff, I guess. Okay, so you'll have access to all of this if you're interested. You don't have to write There's only one thing I'm going to ask you to write down. But I guess for parents to notice that if their child has excessive crying or irritation in younger children, more than usual, I know that's normal. And believe me, all of these suggestions have nothing necessarily to do with the pandemic. They're pretty much good things to think about anytime. But returning to behaviors they might have outgrown, you know, toileting accidents, bedwetting, things like that. If you notice or sadness, unhealthy eating or sleeping habits, irritability or acting out more than usual in teens, that's, you know, pretty normal. But, you know, when it goes beyond what's normal, of course, poor school performance or avoiding school, difficulties with attention and concentration, avoiding activities that normally were enjoyed in the past, unexplained headaches or physical ailments, and of course, the use of alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. And the CDC also, and I've included the website so someone can go here and get these suggestions for themselves, but ways for parents to support their children. And they suggest to talk about, you know, the COVID outbreak and anything else that's going on in the community. You know, so much is going on. Answer their questions on a level that they can understand and that you feel comfortable as a parent talking to them. You know, to reassure them that they're safe, let them know that it's okay to be upset, that you may be upset, and to share how you deal with your own difficulties and things that are going on in your life. Try to limit their exposure to news coverage of an event, including social media, which I know is harder and harder these days. Children might misinterpret what they hear, and it's important that their parents can clarify things for them. Being a role model, of course, is important. And I know some folks earlier today have already said that, and we all know how important that is. Not the easiest thing sometimes. Spending time with your kids with activities and reading together, exercising, even something as simple as board games. You remember board games, they're those things that come in a box and you can actually manipulate them with your hands and okay. Yep. Taking care of your own mental health, there's a tall order. You may, the CDC suggests that you may experience increased stress during a pandemic. Imagine that. But fear and anxiety can be overwhelming and cause strong emotions, no kidding. The one thing they left out, that I personally think is one of the most important ones, is listening. It is so easy to talk to your kids, or not, maybe not easy, but easier to talk to them. But boy, stopping and listening is so important, and really hearing what they're saying. And even to the point is, tell me more about that. You know, anything like that that can get the kids talking. I think that I've included some other resources, and I know I'm probably over my time. And in this list that you're going to see, I've put in some things that are more of crisis related. So if you see some of the behaviors that we talked about earlier, that you may be able to contact some of these. And these organizations may start out at a national level, but then they pare it down to more local things. And one of the lists that's on there, the Guilford County Schools mental health support. So that's something at people's fingertips for their kids. I also included a link to a PBS documentary called Kids in Crisis, You're Not Alone. And I hadn't known about that before. And I think it's something that's worth looking at, and knowing that kids and parents can sort of relate to a lot of the things that are going on with the people in the documentary. There's I've also included some behavioral health services that are available in North Carolina. And finally, of course, the one I did not include, but I want you to write it down, is highpointresources.org. That's very local, very pertinent. And I know people who help put it together, and they are on top of their game. So that's a really important resource to use. If you haven't already looked at it, it's a great website. And finally, the last thing I have to say is I talked to a real expert, and that is our oldest daughter, Carrie, who is an elementary school counselor at the Hong Kong International School. And I said, Carrie, what can parents do if they're wondering what can their kids read that won't make them crazy and won't make, you know, the parents crazy. And she said, oh, Mom, tell them to go to commonsensemedia.org. This will give parents opportunities to see programs, books, TV shows, movies that are healthy influences on their kids and things that the family can watch together. So I said, I'm glad I went to the real expert, and that's Carrie. So you can thank Carrie for her suggestion if you use the website and it works out. So thank you.
Dr. Harmon, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Those resources are invaluable. And as the team at Kellin Foundation indicated, they will be sharing those in a follow-up. Many of these things have been populating in the chat, and folks can find those there. But feel free to utilize the resources how you see fit, whether you may be a parent, you interact with youth, or you can share with someone else who can benefit from that. Dr. Harmon, I would be remiss if I did not mention the other Dr. Harmon. And I was reminded when I read your bio that I should probably bring him up because he is the founder and board chairman of Resilient High Point. And I'm not sure if he's here with us today. I know he had a number of things going on and sends his best regards to everyone who was involved in this effort. But thank you, Susan, to you and Patrick for the incredible work that y'all do. Truly advocates and champions for not just the youth of our community, but our community at large. So thank you, seriously. And Susan, I'm going to ask you to hang out as well because I think we're going to have a pretty cool Q&A towards the end. Frederick Douglass is our third panelist. She's the mother of 3 beautiful daughters, Corey, Joy, and Mia. She's the grandmother of 4 wonderful grandchildren, Christian, Caleb, Lariah, and Kalia. Frederick is an ordained elder and the founder of Faith and Community Ministries. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Communications at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. She's a certified family peer specialist and serves as the family partner implementation specialist with North Carolina Families United. She also provides technical assistance in implementing the family partner role across the state. Frederick believes that families have a primary decision-making role in the care of their children, as well as in the policies and procedures governing care for all children in their communities. Frederick, how are you doing today?
All right, I had to get myself off mute. How are you? Doing fine.
I'm well. Well, it's so good to see you, and we appreciate you being here with us on this Wednesday. We've got a few questions. If you don't mind, we'll jump right into it. Is that all right?
That's wonderful.
Please help us and let us know from your perspective, how do you view children's mental health in our community?
Well, everywhere I go, I view it from the eyes or through the perspective of a parent of children who have mental health challenges. My youngest daughter was diagnosed when she was 5. She's 33 now. So I believe that we have to continue to have open and honest communication between children and youth and their families and the people who serve them. I agree with Jace as he spoke about flipping my pages. I believe that the pages should be flipped and that the families and especially the children should do the narration on those pages. And I believe that the communication and the education that's needed in our communities must include our entire communities, not just our providers, but our churches, our recreation facilities, our businesses, our schools, our juvenile justice systems, our protectors, our police. And we have to listen to the heart of the needs of the people. And we have to listen to the needs of the children. We have to actively listen to them. And when we do that, it not only tells us what we should offer to support them, but it also shows us how we should offer it. If we do that, then we do not patronize and we do not marginalize them. I know that everybody has needs. I know the service delivery system even has needs, but I do not believe that change will come if we set the needs of the system against the needs of the families. They are some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And when it comes to what I see that's happening now and what else needs to happen, I see that as the same thing, to continue to use children and youth as educators. always involving them when we are sharing information about mental health challenges, about needs, about the service delivery system. Always having conversations around how important it is that the families are a part of systems change and not the problem. As far as our resources, I would rather speak more to how we deliver the ones we already have. We need to do more about knowing about the resources that we refer people to. We need to truly understand what they're able to offer and be able to do a warm handoff. We need to educate our resources on the children that we are referring so that they would truly understand their needs and why we are referring them. I think I covered all three questions.
No, you did. I was trying to keep up. My pen was just moving because you were going, and I loved so much of it. You had a quote in there where you said, "We won't see the change that we need to see so long as we continue to prioritize the needs of a system over the needs of our families." And that was so profound, something that I just felt like that happened so often, that everyone was looking at the efficiency and bureaucracy of things, and we failed to think about, well, this is all for the sake of the people. The systems are for people, not the other way around. So I love that. I love that. We've got some more that's going to come towards the end, where perhaps we'll have some Q&A that'll go on. Do you mind hanging around for that?
I'm always hanging around. I'll be right here.
Awesome. We appreciate you and everything you do, not only as a member of the faith community, but in the many roles that you serve the citizens and the residents who are in our community and the families who need your advocacy and leadership. Thank you so much. Devon Johnson. Devon, how you doing, man? We're friends here.
Yeah, man.
And you and I have known each other for quite some time. So I'm going to read this bio as if I've never read it before. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good, man.
Devon Johnson is committed to serving as a conduit who brings about necessary change through the implementation of educational principles rooted in establishing and advancing the educational legacy for generations to come. Devon is an ordained pastor, educator, community advocate, small business owner. Devon is also committed to the spiritual and emotional development of children and teens of all ages, and has made creating and maintaining positive relationships with parents, teachers, and students a priority within the community at large. As a faithful and devoted husband to his wife, and as a proud and doting father to their son, Devon is determined to make a difference as a leader with a heart to serve, a mind to develop others, and a plan to leave a lasting legacy that will benefit generations to come. This legacy is firmly planted in the notion that truly knowledge is power. His mission is to help foster an environment that equips families and youth with effective educational programming geared towards propelling them to the next level mentally, academically, and socially. It's so good to have you here with us, man, and so grateful for the work that you're doing. And I'm just gonna let you have it. Tell us, from your perspective, how do you view children's mental health in our community?
Yeah, man. First of all, it's such an honor to be a part of this panel today. Thank you all for the thinkers and the pushers of this vision. I'm grateful for the opportunities. Hard to go after Reverend Douglass and Jaron and Jairus and everyone else who already spoke. But I want to first start off with a story. I used to teach in Guilford County schools. And I had a caseload. I was a special education teacher. I had a caseload of about 135 kids, all ranging from different issues and concerns. But I had this one particular 7th grader who came to me one day in the library, and we were talking, we were having a conversation, and he has some behavioral issues that, you know, oftentimes, if you all are familiar with education, that if you are the Black male educator in the school, then most of the teachers send the kids to you, right? So he and I had built a relationship that despite what he had been doing, you know, he always knows he can come to me. So he found himself in the library that day, and someone asked him a question about what he was doing that weekend. And that weekend, he said that, you know, he listed things that most seventh graders wouldn't be doing. So then I asked him, I said, man, you know, why are you going to do those type of things? He said, because I'm bad. Yeah. The seventh grader said, because I'm bad. So I say that to say this, is that we define children by our words and our actions. This seventh grader had a track record with the resource officer, with the principals, with the teachers, that the words that they were giving him, they were titling him and labeling him as bad, but also how they treated him. They had already boxed him in as bad. So when you ask me about mental health of our young people, I say this, I say that we as adults, it does not just stop at their families, but it also is a part of what we do in our particular roles. It's about this village concept. I know it's old school. I know it may sound inundated, but I believe that the village is very significant and important to how we nurture and groom and take care of our young people. If we stop at the fact that I get off of work at 5 o'clock, if we stop at the fact that that person is not a part of my family, then that young person's life may be doomed, because they're looking for adults to help nurture the gifts and talents that they have. Mental health is very important with children, because it's up to us to make sure that we are also providing language to them. I'm a children youth pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church. I have a great honor of serving over 200 young people. And I've seen a increase in my pastoral counseling, because parents are trying to figure out how to parent in a pandemic. It was already hard enough to raise a toddler, to raise a teenager prior to the pandemic, but now here it is. My son is not acting how he used to act. My daughter's not doing what she used to do. What am I supposed to do with this? And their way of expressing who they are or what they are trying to achieve may be them shutting down. But it's up to us as adults to help provide that language. They are looking for a language. My son is almost 2 years old, and when he was just hitting 1, he used to say eat, and eat means that he's hungry, and he didn't necessarily know what he wanted to eat. All he knew was that he was hungry and he wanted to eat. Our children are in this stage of their lives where they have no idea of what exactly they're asking for, but they know they're trusting adults to help them navigate the darkest waters that we ever seen before. I'm not a researcher quite yet, but I have definitely thrown myself into this thing. I believe that in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see the children who had to go through a pandemic of schooling, of family life, of society. Because remember, guys, we're not only living in a pandemic of COVID-19, but also a pandemic of social unrest. A pandemic where literally men like me are being killed on the streets, and our kids are having to watch that daily, not just on television, but also through social media, and they're being reminded of just how unvaluable their bodies may be. So can you imagine 5, 10 years from now, the same toddler, the same teenager that we're talking to right now, the life they have to live after, post these pandemics? It's up to us as adults to create these conversations. So you asked me about resources. I think that Elder had already spoke about it, Reverend had already spoke about it. I think it's up to us it's how we deliver these resources. Myself, over the last year, I have just thrown myself into this thing of really being trauma informed and also creating trauma informed faith communities. I think the church is a vital piece of the Black community as a whole, and it's up to the church to speak to these needs and not just be a person on the wall, because silence is deadly. Hear me. Silence is deadly. And anyone that has a touch, a hand in the lives of families, you can no longer sit on the wayside, just saying, wonder if I could, how can I? I'm not valuable enough. No, there are enough proponents, enough people out there who are willing to do this work. And I'm so excited to be in partnership and to be in relationship with many of you all who are here. So thank you.
Man, how powerful was it when you said children are looking for language? Mm-hmm. Your son just says eat, doesn't know what he wants to eat, but he just knows that means he needs some food. And kids are certainly looking for us as adults, us as the community, and for you specifically being in the faith community and several of other panelists who are in the faith community. That was so powerful, looking for that language. I heard, and I saw rather in the chat, a lot of folks affirming everything that's been said here and affirming. I saw what Dr. Graves talked about. Now is the time for us to truly step up and truly come together to truly build a resilient community that can address these things right now. Yeah. So I appreciate it. I'm just in awe of all the knowledge that's being spewed out here today. It's helping me, and I imagine that every single person who's listening is being helped as well. I'm going to ask you, brother, to stay around as well for some questions that may come towards the end.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Our fourth panelist is Jessie Matlock, who's actually with the Kellin Foundation team. She serves as the project team lead there. She's a licensed clinical mental health associate working with children ages 0 to 21, using a blend of therapeutic approaches to create individualistic care while also providing evidence-based treatment. Jessie, you're doing stuff I can't even pronounce, my friend. Jessie is rostered in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy and uses this modality to help children and families use their resiliency to overcome traumatic experiences. Jessie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so great and so honored to be here. This conversation has been really powerful and just inspiring. So I'm trying to soak it all in, and hopefully I can add another little nugget to this conversation as well. I would like to mention that, of course, my dog has been sleeping this whole time, and now she's scratching at the door. So if you hear banging, I promise it's just my dog. I'm okay. I'm safe.
But listen, Jessie, you make sure to take care of the dog. Dogs have mental health too, my friend.
Oh, she is fine. She is just persistent. She is fine.
She's just persistent. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. From your perspective, how do you view children's mental health in our community? And if that ties into what you come next with what's happening, what needs to happen, and any resource, you can feel free to go however you feel.
Absolutely. So I think a lot about what everybody has said, and I see the theme of connection, right? Kids need that connection, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And what is the one thing that we've had to recreate this past year? It's connection. We've had to find different ways to connect via telehealth, virtual schooling. So, it's really, as a clinician, I'm seeing that a lot of children are struggling. They're struggling to connect with their caregivers. They're struggling to connect with their peers, with the people that they consider role models in their life. And that has had some serious consequences, of course. So we're seeing more anxiety symptoms, more depressive symptoms, more trauma-specific disorders, depending on what's going on in their particular family, like food insecurities, abusive relationships. And of course, these symptoms do not define the child, as we've heard today, right? These symptoms don't define the child, but it's a cry for help. It's a cry to say, hey, I need support. I need connection. I need an individual who's going to hear me and help me heal. And so, the statistics are sad to see. The hospitalization rates are up. The need for mental health services has gone up. But what I like to remember is that children are resilient. They can learn resiliency. Resiliency can definitely increase with the help of caregivers, with the help of role models. Just having one supportive adult in their life will dramatically change the outcome of the pandemic, of the social injustices that we've been seeing. So, it's such a loaded question, right? How do I view children's mental health? On one hand, I see the statistics. I see numbers going up. And then on the other hand, I think about collaboratives and community partnerships like this one, ones that are actively making these steps to better children's mental health. So, really what I want people to take away, and I think everybody continues to reiterate it, is that children need that connection, that listening, that support, to tap into what are they into? Is it video games? Is it TV shows? Is it playing basketball? And to take that and really, really invest yourself in it. Don't use it as a time to step out and do your own thing, but really lean into it and learn why is it important to them, and just be that presence for them. let's see, the second question is, what is happening and what else needs to happen to support children's mental health? I think just really focusing in on those resiliency building strategies, like listening, helping children overcome challenges, being the holders of hope for our children. And that means that we have to find our own hope as well, right? Modeling to children that we can overcome obstacles by modeling it to them. I have this obstacle in my life and this is how I'm overcoming it, whether it be with your own village, with your own therapy, with your own, whatever it might be, your faith community, and just really showing a child how to do that too. Although they'll teach us too, it's a two-way street. We teach them, they teach us. It's not a power dynamic by any means. And then the last question was any resources that I wanted to add or share. I think about nctsn.org, of course, is a really great website. They have tons of statistics. If you are a numbers person, they have fact sheets, they have toolkits that you can use. And this is not only for providers, this is for caregivers as well. It really describes how specific types of trauma or complex trauma can influence a child, but it also has a resiliency framework as well. So how can we really tap into a child's strengths, their support systems, and really build that child up? So I really love the website nctsn.org, but really the best resource that you have is just connection and listening to a child. That's really where it starts. We can't really do any of that hard work as a clinician, as a caregiver. We can't do any of that hard work if we're not really meeting them where they are.
I heard you echo something there, Jessie, that I've heard people say, and that's that kids are dealing with compound issues right now that keep building on one another and working really to create an even crazier challenge than we can imagine for our youth. And ultimately, to echo again what's been said as well, is that language. The behavior is just language, and it's a cry for help. And if we're not taking the time to connect and build those resiliency skills in kids, we're not giving them a chance. And we can't just write them off. I heard someone say earlier, we can't just write them off. We gotta ensure to be able to say, this child needs my kind of support. And really, that's just me being there for them the best I can. Jessie, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do for the Kellin Foundation, and hang around a bit for the Q&A.
Absolutely. I want to learn some more, so I'll be here.
Awesome. Ebony Burnett, who's our final panelist. Ebony, is so glad to have you here with us today. Ebony currently resides in Burlington, North Carolina, with a wonderful husband and two amazing children. Her life has been a testament of hardship and triumph. She uses her experiences to teach, inspire, and impact the people that God places in her life. As the Youth Development Director at the Hayes Taylor YMCA, Ebony's department has garnered national recognition by the YMCA of the USA for their work in character development and social emotional learning. She also serves Guilford County as a Child Advocacy Network leader in partnership with NC Child, where her role is to engage the community in the legislative process and to influence policy that will benefit children and their families. Her goal is for Guilford County to have strong support systems in place that will ensure youth and their families have the necessities they need to thrive. Ebony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, we appreciate you being here, and we're going to jump right into it. From your perspective, how do you view children's mental health in our community? Feel free to tie in anything that you see that's happening, that needs to happen, and resources that you feel are valuable with regards to that perspective.
Okay, so everybody stole my answer. Just kidding. From my perspective, we know that children's mental health is a huge priority. And I'm glad the conversations are happening and that the public stigma around mental health is being discussed, but I know we still have a long way to go. The pandemic, it created, uncovered, and just really exacerbated our community's mental health needs. And so we need to continue, of course, having those conversations at the Y. I have a dual role. I work at the Y, and I'm the Guilford County Child Advocacy Network lead. And at the Y, we encourage children to use their voices. We are always asking them how they're feeling. We do daily check-ins, and we see, how was your day? We give a thumbs up or thumbs to the side or thumbs down. And if we get those thumbs down, we know to have those conversations with those students. And we need to be their safe spaces. We are one of the things that I have a story too. I had a student who was a middle schooler who had a hard time, and he ran out of the classroom. And he ran down to the office, and we're a licensed child care center. And we're like, why is this child out of his classroom by himself? But he had run down the office, and he came in and he closed my door. And apparently it's something that happened in the classroom. And he said, I need to talk to you because you're my safe space. And for him to use that language and to know that he could come to me, he knew exactly where to go, was really impactful to me. And so of course we sat down and we had those conversations. And helping children to understand how to manage those feelings, how to manage those behaviors. A big part of what we do is emotion management. How does your body feel? How does your, when you're upset, what starts happening to your body? What happens to your tummy? What happens to your face? And helping them to deal and cope and kind of calm their bodies down. We have kind of calm corners in our YMCA where they're able to just calm their bodies and get themselves kind of back together, where they can again rejoin the group when they're in their time and when they're ready. And if I have to go in and step in until they're ready, that's perfectly fine. But we are their safe spaces. And then also making sure they understand who they are and that they love who they are. We had a conversation yesterday. So we had some friends who were not being nice to each other. And we were talking about beauty on the inside and beauty on the outside. And I realized that some, our little girls, they didn't know that their beauty was not just the surface. It was within, and it was having a conversation with them like, what do you love about yourself? And they couldn't come up with anything, and that kind of hurt. And I was kind of taken aback, like how can we make sure that we are so now it's going to be we're doing a whole I'm going to try to develop a curriculum so that our kids are understanding who they are and they accept who they are. And getting them to kind of manage. And so I feel like if they know who they are and they know what makes them tick, what makes them work, what makes them move and shake, and they'll be more likely and they'll be able to kind of manage the challenges that we're now, that they're now facing. And so what is happening, I am, of course, that policy person. So, the policy, the American Rescue Plan has passed some legislation to invest in mental health, and mental health has been a part of that COVID-19 response. I would love to see increased mental health supports in the school systems by way of school nurses. We're having a conversation about that on Monday. I'll add that to the chat with, in addition to school counselors and psychologists. There's also legislation at the state level to support school nurses, because we know that school nurses also support mental health in the schools, and Guilford County is making strides in those areas. I'm going to go on a limb and say I would even like to see, some resiliency training. I think that's happening in the school system, where we have some resiliency training in our school systems and within our youth service providers, because that's where the kids are. And so we need to make sure that that's being provided across the board. And what if we had even social emotional learning as a part of core curriculum, like math? That would be that would be absolutely amazing. So how could we do that? Or just make sure that those additional supports are there for families. We know that there was a Columbia University study that said for every $1 that we invest in child, social emotional development and mental health, there's an $11 return on that investment. So if we can really make sure that we have this money, can we invest this money the right way, where it needs to be, to make sure that our children have what they need to be successful in the future.
Ebony, thank you. I love it. I love it. And I think you've rounded this out so well. That story that you shared of the young person who came into your office and closed the door in a hurry, and essentially just saying to you, you're my safe space. You were his refuge. And thank you for encouraging us, for letting us know that story, and really, admonishing that everyone here who can become that safe space to do that, to help students learn to love themselves. We all probably need to learn to do that a little bit more for each other, and drop in the knowledge about the $1 to $11. As an elected official, we often have to have that kind of knowledge that comes back that's saying, hey, if we don't see the math and research on it, then we can't throw dollars behind it. And certainly 11-to-1 is impressive. And so thank you just for sharing that. As is indicated in the chat, if you have not seen it already, please drop any questions that you have for our panelists. This is the time in which Valerie Jones and Lisa Taylor will take over, and they'll ask those questions of our panelists. I want to say thank you to every single person who's been a panelist, who's been involved, and thank you again to the Kellin Foundation and every other partner for making this event happen. Lisa, Valerie?
Hey, well, I think that the panelists really just did an excellent job of covering a lot of information, so I don't really see a lot of questions. I did see one question that Kelly posed earlier that just asked if we are meeting the youth where they are. You know, we talk a lot about therapeutic services and mental health services and wanting to hear the voice of the children, but once they voice, you know, make their voice heard, are we considering what they say that they need? So if anybody wants to, you know, address that or tackle that question, feel free.
Well, this is Frederick Douglass, and I would just say one of the things that I learned very early on in my relationship to my daughter, especially dealing with her mental health challenges, was to recognize that if I didn't meet her where she was, I might as well just leave the house, because you know, she really had a lot of information to share that was helpful to me as a parent, and also to people who were serving her. And a lot of the things that she did or said or felt was important, I did not. But I learned to reframe. I learned to recognize strengths in places where my child was or what she was doing. I had to recognize the strengths within those things that looked negative to me. But really, in order for her to do what she was doing, there was a strength there. And what was it? So I think that that's how we have to look at our young people or communicate with our young people, is recognizing that, hey, I might not agree with what you're saying or doing, but I know there's strength there because there's resilience there.
Awesome. Thank you, Reverend Douglass. Thank you. Anyone else? Devon, were you going to comment, Pastor Johnson, on that?
Yeah, I think someone put a great question in the chat in the midst of Reverend speaking, who was actually working with them on a daily basis. I guess that was the kind of question. Yeah. I think that's very important. I think we have to keep them included in all things. Right now, a big push is diversity and inclusion, right? So businesses are looking to diversify their boards and their organizations. I think it's also important to diversify the levels of generations that you have involved in making decisions. So, I'm always asking questions before I plan an event. I'm always asking questions before I even do a sermon series, right? Because I'm interested in knowing what exactly these young people are interested in hearing and having. Because I think it's very important that if we don't shape the narrative, then their friends will, then society will, then the media will. So if we are actually proponents to help them shape that narrative, then we can probably help them solve some real life questions and actually create strong and better leaders.
I agree with you, just because you said, that's like what I said earlier, like just being more consistent, like just keeping them engaged, where let's say like you go probably like a couple of days without talking to a youth, but like just checking in, being like, hey, like, are you good? Or like, how's everything going? Just keeping them, just being consistent, keeping them engaged, like just letting them know like, hey, just because we don't talk daily, just know that I'm always here for you whenever you're going through something.
Can I ask Jace a question?
I was gonna say, that's a great comment, Jace.
Absolutely. As a follow-up, do you feel, Jace, that youth are the youth leadership and youth advocacy is important for ensuring that young people get the services they need?
I think that's very, very. I think that's one of the keys, actually. Just making sure, like, let me see. I'm trying to make sure I word everything right before I fully go into it. I really do think that's just one of the keys though. Just like having just like a backup, someone there to back you. Like no matter like how I say like I want like make sure I word everything right. Like even just going to your mentor, making sure like, hey, like, you know, it's okay if I say this, or like it's the right way to go about whatever situation or whatever thing you're going through. But having like a strong mentor, someone that you can actually trust, like that's not judgmental, uh just like it's very open-minded and creative, you know. Did that answer the question good?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, due to time, I know we're not going to be able to answer any more questions because it's 1:27, and my boss and director, Dr. Kelly Graves, likes to be on time. So I want to make sure that we give the last comments, of course, to Dr. Graves. Before doing that, I want to just say thank you to all the panelists, everyone that has, you know, just been with us on today. It has been phenomenal. It has been absolutely phenomenal. So now, without further ado, Dr. Kelly Graves.
Thank you so much. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time since we did an hour and a half instead of our traditional hour because of the importance of the topic. In the handouts that you'll be receiving after this call, we'll have the information on the next slide. So we're going to go through, I'm going to pop through them so you can see it, but you'll have all of these graphics in the information that are sent out. And they're really just kind of concrete tips and tools that could be used that have been put out by the National Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health. Concrete things that you can share on your social media, that you can share in your social circles, in your work circles, you know, all those different places. So you'll get this information. So I'm kind of going quickly through here, but please give some time and thought to how you could, which ones kind of vibe for you and which ones you might want to challenge yourself to engage in over the next month and potentially, you know, moving forward as we continue to flip the script. So much wonderful information that was shared by all of our speakers and panelists today. Thank you so much for everyone sharing their time and talents and passion for the work. This panel and keynote presentation, it was so meaningful and needle moving as we think about how we continue to lift up the issue of supporting children's mental health and our roles, unique roles, no matter what perspective we're coming at, we can all play a part in supporting children and their mental health. As we look ahead and wrap up right at 1:29, just wanted to share with you and invite everyone back for our meeting next month. Next month, we're going to be kind of continuing an extension of this conversation, adding in the topic of substance abuse among youth in particular. We're going to be launching a new initiative to address the opioid crisis among youth in Guilford County. And so we invite you to join us for a discussion virtual just like this around trauma, addiction, and resilience, and what resources are available and how we can continue to spread seeds of hope for youth and families, which we know the overlap between mental health and addiction. And so we'll continue these discussions and collectively look at how we can continue to build capacity and coordinate services. So again, special thanks to all of the partner agencies that worked behind the scenes to pull this off and to line up all the panelists and the speakers. Feel free to join us on the PACES Connection page. And last but not least, as we're kind of checking out of our meeting, we would love to hear your feedback about what was helpful for this during these meetings and what you want to hear about moving forward, so we can be responsive to what the community says it needs in terms of topics and focus and collaboration building and those pieces. So we'll drop the link for the evaluation in the chat box. So feel free to click on that as you're checking out of the meeting. And again, it'll be in your handouts as well. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for supporting these efforts. As Jaren said, we challenge everyone to flip the script, to select something to do that might be different than what you might have done before as a call to action, and continue to support children's mental health in our community. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again. Bye.
Have a great day.
Dr. Grace, everyone have a great day.
The dog said bye.
For real, like literally at the very end of the meeting, she was good the whole time, and here she goes barking. Like he's literally standing at the door too, like it's time to go.
That's it.
That's the way to end the meeting.
Crazy dog. So, all right, y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Grace, will we get the recording of this?
Yes, the recording will come out, and we're gonna put it on a. Sorry, of course. I'm glad she's doing this now instead of in the middle of the meeting. So yes, we'll record it and we'll upload it to a YouTube link, and then that YouTube link could then be shared wherever, on social media or in wherever.
Wonderful. Thank you. This was awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Take care.